Thanks for tuning in to the Braddog Media Show. Today I'm joined by Executive Director at LegalShield and host of the Young Pro Showcase. Please welcome the man on the move, Josh Lockhart.
What's going on? Come on. Come on, man. Nice.
Hey,
Glad
I
to be here. I
appreciate you
appreciate you
joining
having
me.
me. Absolutely.
Thanks for hopping on.
Hey,
All
man.
right, man. So I came across you on Instagram, and it looked like you had a lot of exciting things going on. For the people that haven't come across your page anywhere, what exactly do you do, and specifically, what is the Young Pro Showcase all about?
So I've been I'm an independent business owner from home. With the company Legal Shield, been building that business, that book of business and client base for a bunch of years. And a while back, when I got into corporate America, I worked for an insurance office. My experience, I don't know if this is everybody, certainly not, but my experience was the day I started, I was 23. They literally said, you're too young. You don't look the part. I had spiky hair. No one's going to take you seriously. In fact, we're going to hire somebody else. And they didn't work out. So we have to fill the role. If you can get the licensing done by next week, you got the job. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay. And it was just, I mean, maybe we can talk about it more, but it was just, it was not a super positive environment. And I thought like, this was the thing for me. This is the path for me. And I got down that a little bit and I was like, no, it definitely is not. And so fast forward, the Young Pros is just, it was kind of an internal thing that we did for anybody under 40, the company nationwide, Canada. And so I was looking for ways to just kind of create some resources, some promotional, some recognition things internally. So I just, I started doing some interviews with some of the up and comers, and then that turned into, well, let me make it public. And then that turned into, well, let me, put it on my public Facebook page. And then that turned into, well, let me like clip them and make it look good. And so they can be shareable. And then that turned into other people like, oh, well, what are you doing? And I want to be on. So it was just one of those things, right? It's, a lot of great ideas just come out of like sheer dumb luck and necessity.
Oh, totally. It's funny how you start something with kind of like, yeah, you didn't have this as an end goal, right? But you never know how things are going to turn out and just kind of
Oh yeah.
grow and.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I mean, we're having a lot of fun with it, and making some fun clips. Sharing them around, and met some pretty cool people. And now I have a list. Yeah, you got a list, right? You got a list of like, okay, I got to get to this person, this person, this person, and some pretty cool things have come up from it. And we'll keep doing it, right? Who knows where it's going to go?
Yeah, that's fun. I definitely want to jump into your background and experience with corporate America, but kind of hitting on the show a little more. So, like, what type of people do you have on the show? What would people hear?
They're all entrepreneurs, right? Various, just wide a range of backgrounds. 18 to 35. We had a 19-year-old kid on who, prior to the shutdown, was working or went to go get a job at Cheesecake Factory, and got the job, and started working with us. Um, of course, the shutdown happened, no job, and he's killing the business. And what does that look like for a 19-year-old? And somebody else who's in the B2B space, working with huge hospitals and schools, actually in Kansas City, and what does that look like, and kind of their journey. Crazy story. I mean, this chick was dad went to jail, mom left her, 6 kids, no parents, got CPS called on them. They were trying to make it, just crazy stuff. So it's, young pros, young professionals, that's what it's all about. Because, one thing that I found is impostor syndrome is really real. It's a real thing. When people are young, when I was young, I figured in my early 20s, when I was getting into the business world, that everybody else had it figured out. I'm like, this person's successful. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. There's a bunch of BM dealers there. And there's, the school is kind of around a nice part of the town. And so everybody drive the Beamer in college. Now, I didn't have a car. And I'm like, man, everybody's got a Beamer. And then I get into the business world. I'm like, see, this stuff. And I just figured like everybody kind of had something. They knew something that I didn't. And, so now I see, these young people right? 18 to 35. So it's a wide range, but young people where, an older generation, especially when they talk about millennials, and it's getting better, but it's like, it's not the most positive messaging.
Yeah.
And then they're coming up, they're doing amazing things. They're doing incredible things that, what I mean, my parents didn't do. No one in my family when they're that age didn't do, and they're crushing it. And all of them, not all of them, a lot of them, are like, oh, I'm not worth it. I'm not going to put myself out there as much as I could. This, and this, and kind of having that as a platform has really helped me out a lot to see that in other people, because I think maybe to a degree we all had that a little bit, right? So it's been a really interesting thing. I mean, I don't know if you would agree with this, but any kind of interview or anytime you're the teacher, you're doing more listening than talking. You probably get most out of it,
Oh,
right?
totally.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what we're doing.
That's cool. Yeah, man. Us millennials, we've taken a lot of hate growing up.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, it's funny. And like I said, I think it's getting better, especially with like Instagram culture and different things. But like I said, when I started, in corporate America, like that was the first thing they said. It was almost like football two-a-days. You know what I mean? So maybe it was partly by design. Like, we're gonna see if you're gonna quit. And I'll never forget. There's this guy in my office that he made a bunch of money. I mean, he made $1 million a year plus. I'd never even seen anybody, been around anybody that had like that. I was hoping that some of his dandruff just fell on me so it could rub off. You know what I mean? I'm a young guy out of college, and I remember that. So it was an office of 6 people, by the way. So it wasn't like this massive place. His name was Mark, and so I remember the Christmas party. I was like so excited. I've been there like a year, and I was like told my fiance, I was like, hey, you got to come meet Mark. And so I run up to him. I'm like, hey, Mark, this is, my fiance, Mark. And he's like, who are you? I'm like,
Whoa.
wait, what? Like, what do you mean, who am I? Like, I see you every day. And like, that's just how it was. And, and now kind of seeing it, the thing, this was 10 years ago, and, social media was around, but not as prevalent as it is right now. And so everybody's just more vocal about it. Right. I think there's always like, oh, the next generation, oh, these kids that did that thing, you know what I mean? But people are just more vocal about it, labeling everybody. I mean, we're, that's the 2020 thing to do, is just label everybody as a group, right?
And Mark, what a guy. So you only had 6 people in that office?
Yeah. I mean, it was a small office. It was a little like, storefront type of deal. He'd been in the business for 25 years, and he'd been super so interesting, right? So I've been in the business, in the industry for 13 years total, right? So he started 25 years before me. That was a time where the phone was on the wall. You had to answer it because you didn't know who it was. No caller ID, probably no voicemail. You know what I mean? You'd call up and say, hey, Brady, I saw you at the county picnic. I'm going to come by and we're going to do business. You're like, all right, come on by. And then, I came in right at 2008 when everything, and I didn't know it, right? Everything was just, collapsing. The real estate was just, so I was, I sold insurance, life, home, auto, and, super, super sexy thing to do. Right. Never thought that I would do it. But anyway, so I was told, hey, you need to go form relationships with realtors. And so I'm going talking to these guys, and they're like, we're going out of business. You know what I mean? It's just like everything was crumbling. And so, they're telling me, hey, do these things that we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago that just don't work. So here we are 13 years later, and there's, certain people saying, well, hey, this is how I did it 15 years ago. It's like, well, that's great. But you know what I mean? It's like somebody told one of my guys, they're like, hey, don't you have some business cards? And so he calls me, he goes, Josh, do I need some business cards? I was like, how old is the person that told you that? He's like 63. I was like, okay, end of conversation. That's why he said that. Right.
I'd like to see what Mark's doing now. I mean,
he just wasn't a good dude. He just wasn't a good dude. He had he didn't, because you're always, I don't know about you, but when you're starting something or wherever you're at, right? You're always looking at the next level. Where can I get? And you're looking at the people that maybe are doing what you do, but are a bit further along. And you're like, well, what are they doing? What's their lifestyle like? What's this like? What's that like? So if I kind of go down their path, how will I end up? And, he made a bunch of money, and God knows I want to make a bunch of money, but the rest of it wasn't there. That was one thing that I kind of noticed. So
Totally.
yeah, yeah.
So would you say that Christmas party was like one of the defining moments in you deciding you don't want to be in typical corporate America, or
Oh,
what kind of led you to move on?
yeah, yeah. It was a bunch of things. It was the 2008 2009 stuff. Like that I was in Michigan. Michigan was getting killed. Right. You had the auto dealers. You had you know uh, Katrina happened around that same time, and just a lot of bad things were happening. So there was that part of it. My company was doing a big downsizing. In addition to, like, there was people like that. There were some good people there. I don't want to say there wasn't, but there's just a lot of things. I'm looking at what would 5 years, 10 years be like, down the road be like for me. And I'm like, and one of the big things, I think we talked about this before we got started, is I was about to get married and knew I wanted to move. And I've always moved around a lot. I recently, somebody asked me, and I think I've lived in maybe 25 different houses, something like that.
Dang.
And so I've always moved a lot. And so I'm like, well, I definitely want to move around kind of before having kids, like see a little bit of the sights. And so I couldn't do that working there. So it was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to get something different eventually. And so that kind of led me to more of an independent, situation. And like I said, we've moved from Michigan, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and we'll be here for now. But I'm always open for another move. We'll see what happens.
Kansas City might be next. You never know.
It was, like I said, it was on the radar. I've never done the West Coast thing. I don't know about that though. Maybe
Now might
maybe I.
not be the best time for that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We considered Denver.
That'd
Denver
be
could
nice.
could be nice. Have you ever been out there?
Yeah, I've been to Breckenridge,
Okay.
Colorado. So that was fun.
Yeah,
We're
yeah. I was.
actually talking about getting back out there sometime soon.
Yeah, I've never went in the winter time. We went out and had some training stuff to do, and went up to Red Rocks, climbed up to Red Rocks, had lunch up there. It was super cool, super cool. So
That's
I'd,
awesome.
I'd like to go back again. So have you ever, you've seen like musicians, bands, that's like one of their things, oh, live at Red Rocks.
Yeah, I know my wife went up there for a concert once. I
Okay.
didn't make that trip, but I was a
Once
little
you go
jealous.
up there, it's like, it doesn't matter what genre of music it is, it's going to be amazing at Red Rocks. Like, I
Yeah,
don't care what it is. I would go. Yeah.
totally. I definitely want to make a trip up there. And as you're talking and hearing about the 2008, 2009 stuff, it's kind of interesting where we are now, right? Because there are a lot of people probably kind of struggling in corporate America, and they might be looking to kind of do something for themselves that they have a little more control over, right?
Yeah.
Um, are you seeing kind of a similar trend in people looking to branch out and do their own thing these days?
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. It's incredible. And so, going back to then, I was just getting into the industry, and you had nothing to compare it to. So, you're trying to do business and you're trying to reach out to people, and it was really tough. That's where I learned cold calling, because nothing I was doing worked. So I'm like, let me just start dialing, and it was a miserable experience, but I went on to really build my career off of the back of cold calling, which is crazy. But anyway, it was so tough, and everybody else was like, oh man, I can't believe you're doing that. It's so tough right now. And coming out of that, and I've gone through a couple things where I'm like, there's always tides, right? Everything is ebb and flow. There's good times, bad times, there's cycles, there's all this stuff. And I'm like, I know there's going to be a next time, right? So here we are 10 years later, it looks differently, but it's next time, and there will be a next time. And so, what we've seen with all the layoffs, let goes, people, they had a nice comfy job. All of a sudden, a friend of mine, he actually, he's in the beverage industry, sells liquor, and makes a good income, does well for himself. And, it's a small, family owned company, but they got a CEO, CFO, all the the whole nine. And after 1 month after the shutdown, their whole entire business operation did $30,000 in revenues for the month. I'm like, you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, now he had already kind of had a side hustle going. And so he's like, well, at least I have something. So it's like, I was talking to a friend from college recently, and she said the most profound thing. I don't think she meant to, but she said she's a single girl and she works at a hospital. And she's like, I went and got 2 jobs and I had no time. And so I went down to 1 job and I had no money. I feel like I'm living in a 2 income world on 1 income.
Wow.
Right. And so it's like you almost have to, have a second source, something you can, build, enjoy, build it up. And so that was kind of my situation in the 2009, 2000, right around that time. My company took a big hit, and I had something going on the side, had it fall back on. So when things got shaky, I just said, well, hey, let me just go this direction. I've already been going. So it wasn't a thing for me. So luckily I was a bit more prepared than many, many people. A lot of people, they had high expenses, you know what I mean? They're doing well. We've seen all those stories, and all of a sudden, they're like, shit, what am I going to do? So yeah, absolutely. It's been amazing.
So around that point, how did you get involved with the Legal Shield? Did you kind of reach out to somebody else, or did they come across you in some
Yeah.
way? How did that get started?
It's funny. I'll give you a little bit of a tiny bit of backstory. So I went to school for business. I changed my major a bunch. Had no clue what I wanted to do. Zero, none. I'm like, oh, I like the idea of business. So business school, which is a terrible idea to go, spend money on a business degree, especially when you don't know what you want to do with it. And so I had a personal training business. Wasn't a business. I just charged people to train them because I like working out. And I worked part time at a video store, kind of like Blockbuster's Family Video up in Michigan.
Yep.
And so my dad calls me one time, and he's like, "Hey, this guy that we both knew, he was like my youth pastor at church when I was a kid. He's working for this insurance company. He's making 6 figures. He's killing it. You should talk to him." I'm like, insurance? Like, the only thing I knew about insurance is I paid it every month and I hated it. I'm like,
Right.
that sounds terrible. And she's like, just talk to him. And I respected the guy, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to him. So I talked to him. His name was Johnny, good dude. And he's like, here's the deal. And it was like double what I was making, benefits. I'm like, let me give it a shot. Why not? So I go interview. They tell me what they tell me. They hire me, right? The whole like, hey, you're not going to work out, all this stuff. End up doing a pretty good, had a really good start. It was like, had some like rookie of the office type of thing in the region and different stuff. So I was doing pretty well. Simultaneously, so I got recruited into that. Simultaneously, the same time I started, I met the guy at the company Mark worked at. This other guy named Tom, one of my friends introduced him, and he made him seem like this guy was like Bill Gates level, just the man making it happen, big personality. And so I met him, and I was like, dude, this guy's the real deal. And so he's like, well, go work at this other insurance company and, call me in 6 months. So I forgot about it. I'm working at this insurance company, and my friend hits me up. He's like, Tom, the guy, he needs to hire somebody. I told him how you've been doing. So Tom calls me up. He's like, let me grab you lunch. So we go for lunch, and he's like, hey, so he was looking for like an assistant. And he's like, well, I can tell you're a guy that wants to do his own thing. So let me put you in charge, in touch with my people. And so anyway, I went to work there thinking that was the thing I wanted to do. Right. Simultaneously, one of my, video store customers, approached me one day. He goes, hey, he'd always come in. He was always dressed sharp, and he'd like, rent a movie from me and, whatever, bring his family in. Didn't know the guy, just seen him around. And he's like, hey, I hear you're working with a, insurance company. I think we can make some money together. I'd like to talk to you. Let's grab lunch. Right. So go to lunch, and it was just, it's a super cool product. I'm like, yeah, this is probably something I can do on the side. No big deal. Sounds good. Great. So it was just like a series of things. One led to another, you know what I mean? That I just never planned on. I thought, I don't know what I thought. I had no plan. Right. And, here we are. It just all worked out, and, we're having a lot of fun. We're doing some pretty cool things.
Awesome.
So yeah.
So you never know, a customer at Family Video.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
lead you
yeah. So
on?
the real story is he would come in and be like, "Hey, where's that Josh guy?" And they're like, "Oh, he doesn't work here anymore." And they're like, he was trying to get a hold of me, right? Because he wanted to recruit me into the company, and they're like, "No, no, no, we're not going to give you." He's like, he's a big dude. He looks like a bodybuilder, and so I go in and they're like, "Hey, that big guy's looking for you." I was like, "Well, what does he
The big
want?"
guy.
Yeah, yeah, he is. I mean, and they're like, "Well," I'm like, "What does he want?" And they're like, "I don't know. Do you owe him money?" And I was like, "I don't think so. I mean, I don't think he's got
I
any
hope
late
not.
charges." Like, yeah. So I see him in the store one day, and he's like, "Hey!" I was like, "Oh, crap!" Ended up being a good thing, but like yeah, that was always a joke.
Man,
So
that's funny.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm curious, you have the show,
hmm
you have your business going on at LegalShield.
yeah.
How do those two tie together, or are they like completely different lanes?
Both is the answer. So so I got my business. In addition to that, I oversee all of the reps, nationwide for the company under 40, thus the young pros. Also, I'm over the state of Georgia where I live, and so I started the doing the interviews just as a way internally for Legal Shield for the young people in the company, to just give recognize different ones, kind of find out what's going on, some recognition for people that were really doing well. And it didn't start out as a show. It just started out as like, hey, put this out there for the people internally, and then it turned into like a public Facebook live, and then we gave it a name, and then we gave it a look, and it just keeps progressing, right? So that's kind of how that happened. But so yeah, I have that, the show things happening. It keeps growing and morphing into different things. And then I have a couple of different training platforms, where we train salespeople on cold calling and different things, social media use and prospecting that I do kind of, outside of that, but congruent to that. I'm actually teaching a social media prospecting course here in about an hour to a bunch of people. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Got a bunch of different things going on, and it's funny because like I always had just like one. I had my business and was like super focused on that, and then yet again, right? Somebody approached me like, "Hey, would you're really good at what you do. Would you come train us?" And then I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." Then it got big enough to where I'm like, oh, I can't take the time to do this for free. I mean, I'm not looking to get rich off these people, but like, I got to do something. You know what I mean? So put some things in place, and then I brought on. I got a full time editor producer. It's helping us do some stuff, and we're gonna be launching some stuff on YouTube. So pretty pumped about it. I mean, it's fun. It's all stuff that I never thought I would do. I never thought I would like speak to people either, and we've got to do some pretty cool things. That's why I was out in Denver and speak to some pretty big groups of the biggest one's like 10,000 people. That was insane. So you just roll with it, right?
Yeah, I know how that is. Going behind the scenes here, I know how it is to go, find guests for a podcast.
Yeah.
How do you go about finding people for the show? I'm curious.
Uh, so yeah, yeah, lots of So I've developed a pretty decent network of people, and so kind of initially it was like pulling teeth. You know what I mean? I got one person to do it, and another person to do it, and it was like the night before. I'm like, oh my god, I got to get somebody on here. And then as we did it more, then eventually people started asking me, and so I think right now we got the next month booked out, and then I have a whole. I got probably maybe 3, 4, 5 people. Kind of from Instagram and different things that I haven't even started on that yet. Kind of figuring out what I want to do. It's gonna take on another level. That's what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
Um, so actually, it was somebody that follows your page. I've known her for a while, um, and I met her about a year ago on Instagram, and connected. We talked back and forth, and she does. I think she has her own show on QVC actually. Really really cool what she does. She does a lot of cooking and stuff. And so when you hit me up, I was like, "Do you know this guy?" She's like, "No, I just follow him on Instagram. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Small world.
So who is that?
Her name's Jessica.
Yep.
Eat your way to wellness is your handle. If she sees this, but yeah. So as soon as I started putting on Instagram, she's like, "What are you doing? What is this show? What's going on?" Right? So it's fun. It's fun. We'll see where it goes.
So it's funny you bring her up. For everybody listening, September 23rd, she's
You
coming
got
on.
her?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, coming.
okay. Dude, she's awesome. She's like super friendly, bubbly. All right, cool.
Yeah, everybody be on the lookout for that one. That'll be fun.
Yeah. All right.
Small world. It's funny. It's funny how social media brings people together like that otherwise would never come across each other. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, oh geez, it's nuts. I mean, I haven't, I grew up in like the old school sales, right? Kitchen table, blah 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 blah, and I mean, I haven't met anybody in person since March. Here it is, middle of August. I actually scheduled about a month ago. There's a guy, he lives in my town, and I was like, let me go try to do this coffee. I'll go grab coffee at Panera. And he calls me up the day before, and he's like, "Hey, one of my coworkers got COVID. I got tested. I don't think I have it. I just want to let you know." I was like, "Okay, that's a sign. We don't need to meet anybody in person ever."
We're good.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, saving, and that's the joke, right? I mean, I'm saving a ton of money on gas, not going anywhere. My wife stays more, she just stays at home with the kids. I don't want to say she works harder than I do, right, with the kids. But she goes more places than I do, so it's saving a bunch of money there, not going to Panera, Starbucks, or anywhere else. So I just, did a bunch of upgrades in my office and studio equipment. So
how interesting is that? How much network has changed just, in a snap of the finger. Like I remember, really leading up to, kind of February, March, really all of 2019. I was meeting people, networking like almost every day of the week. And now, not one since.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah. I did, the Chamber of Commerce, the BNI stuff, going to, I actually was the vice president of a young professionals organization, networking organization in Virginia. And, going out doing the shaking hands thing. And it's great, right? It's great. But now it's like, why? do I need to ever do that again? I don't know. I mean, we're not going back. And I mean, I do miss it. I mean, I miss getting around people and that type of thing. So, I do want to do that more, but at the same time, it's like that, it's like going on a forced blind date. I don't know if anybody thoroughly enjoys that. You could make it fun, certainly, but yeah, I feel a bit almost bad, right? With everything going on, we're having the best year we've had in 8 years. Me individually, the company as a whole. You know what I mean? Our expenses are down more than ever. Our income's up more than ever. People have the time. You know what I mean? Customers, everything is the best it has been. And where I live, again, and I'm at the house in my office here a lot. So if I didn't turn on social media and pay attention to the news, which I don't a lot, other than, just being productive on social media, I don't know that I would know what's going on too much.
Likewise.
Yeah. You got to get on Facebook to get some people tell you, how you should think and how you should do everything that we do.
Oh man, if I didn't have this podcast, I don't think I would ever get on social media.
It's man, yeah. That's the big thing. So I train a lot of new salespeople, and it's especially younger people. They're going away from Facebook. Of course, Instagram is the place to be, and everybody kind of says the same thing. They're like, "Oh, Facebook's so negative," and it's like, okay, I'm with you. I agree, but you know what I mean? You're a business person now. You can either use it or get used by it. You just have to make a conscious choice what you want to use it for. So, Yeah,
you have to consciously choose where to go. and
Yeah.
not just get lost in there. You can go down these rabbit holes that you'll wish you never went down real
And
quick.
they'll like, people get like physically angry and violent over what they've been reading on Facebook. I was talking to, kind of a work associate of mine, and she's older, and she lived in a time where there was real. I don't want to misspeak here, but there was much more outwardly signs of racism and all kinds of things, right? And this is
Right.
obviously surrounding what's happened as of late. And she had been watching the news, watching Facebook, and I just happened to call in the midst of her watching all this stuff, and she's just getting mad. And I call her, and we're very friendly, never had any problems, never, nothing, not a thing. And she wasn't yelling at me, but she was just yelling about the situation to I don't know who. And she's just going off, right? I can't believe this, and they did this and that, and da 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 da. And I was like, hey, hello, hey, I'm here. And finally, I'm like, she knew I was on the phone. I don't know what was going on with her day, but I was like, finally, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna hang up now. Call me later. Bye. Like, oh man. So
Right. I mean, you see one thing and your day's ruined. It's
right,
like
right, right.
not not me, I would say, but people can be a bit touchy and let it affect their days too much.
Well,
It's insane.
it's the positive in, positive out, negative in, negative out thing, right? It's if you keep putting in all that stuff. I mean, I can't watch it for too long. I don't even want to get into it, but I read somebody shared, an article about a really bad thing that happened to a kid, and I don't even want to talk about it because it was just I have kids, and that's just extra negativity. But it was where I used to live, and somebody sent me this, and I read it right before bed, and I got two little kids, and I'm like, I was just depressed. I'm like, I hope I don't have nightmares, right? So it's, I don't know. I mean, I wanna be informed as I need to be, but I don't have much use for it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you kind of have to do your own thing sometimes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So
um so that's crazy. This is one of your best years, or sounds like your best year at
yeah,
this point.
for
Do you
sure.
attribute that to people, well, a couple of things. For one, people are kind of forced to engage online, otherwise they won't be able to engage at all,
Yeah.
without the in-person meetings and things like that. And I also wonder, is your company more efficient now because you're doing less in-person things and all these
Oh,
time-consuming activities?
1000%. 1000%. So, a couple things I attribute it to. Um, so let's see, 2015, 2016, I lived in Virginia, very small town. And anytime I had to go do a client meeting or whatever, I had to drive an hour. I put 50,000 miles in my car that year. And yeah, you're talking about messing your car up. You're talking about, gas and upkeep and time. The time thing was just killing me. I'm like, I got to figure out a different way. And it was right around 2016 where I discovered Zoom, started doing Zoom meetings. And it was like trying to teach somebody how to make the first wheel. It felt like they're like, oh, I don't know about that stuff. And then they're like, well, I don't like to be on camera. I'm like, well, if I came to meet you at your office or at Panera, it would be like right now. I can see you, you can see
Yep.
me, I can look in your eye. But it was just, you really had to explain what was going to happen and the whole nine. And even up to about a year ago, you still very much, I felt like, had to do that. Where now it's like, oh yeah, I got to Zoom on my phone. I'll send you the link, no problem. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's just accepted. It's the way we do it. My kids go on Zoom, people go on church on Zoom, we have happy hour with friends on Zoom. It's crazy. And so there's that part of it. um as far as efficient, oh my gosh, right, I can just sit here. My daughter can come play. I can take breaks, we can read books, jump back into a meeting. I don't have to spend gas. I don't have to, you know, rent rooms, spaces, anything. I mean, this is the best, right? So, I spent a couple $1,000s on studio stuff and computer and and I was like, oh man, I'm spending a lot of money, but comparatively over the last 5 months, it's been 5 months now. I'm way ahead, right?
Right.
So there's that. There's just the the kind of culmination of where we're at with technology and the lower expenses and travel and all the stuff. There's that part of it. Specifically, what we do with LegalShield, we're helping people to have access, to attorneys in fraudulent situations. There was how many millions of people? 40 million people didn't get a refund when this first went down, from the flight canceled, the concert canceled, the whatever. And, all of a sudden it's, a $400 flight. It's an $800 this, it's $1,000 that. And that might not be a big deal to anybody, but all of a sudden your income goes down. You're a single mom. You had some plans. It's like, I really need that $500. You can't get a refund. This is just a simple thing, right? This is just a simple thing. And what do you do about it? You just take it on the chin, but that $500 could be the difference between you getting by the next 2 weeks. And that's where we come in to help people mitigate that stuff and really any legal situation. So, we're helping more people than ever. Right. So that's another plus. And then the last thing is, there's a bunch of people like me that 10 years ago, or maybe they just got started in whatever they're doing. And this is not, specific to our company. This is just industry wide. This is what I observed 10 years ago when that whole thing happened. There was most of the people just went, oh crap. And they just held on and just hope it's over. And they just got killed. Right. A lot of people in real estate, all kinds of industries. There was a few people. So most of the people did that. The other major portion just said, well, we'll just wait and see what happens. We're not going out of business or anything. We're just going to wait and see. A small percentage of people said it's time to double down, right? We're just going to grind. And then what I saw with those people, they came out of it. Now they're killing it, right? They're exponentially further ahead than, I had a guy that I used to learn a lot from. He was kind of a mentor of mine 10 years ago. He was doing like $200,000 a year. Now he's doing, he's about to hit 7 figures a year, because he was one of those guys, And so when this started happening, I'm like, oh, it's time to double down. And so for a lot of industries, not all, what I'm seeing happen right now is any action somebody takes to better themselves, their business, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you're doing one podcast, maybe do 2. If you're doing, whatever you're doing, just do more. So one action is actually equal to maybe 1.5 results, where in other times you do 2 actions and you get 1 result, right? It's much harder. And for a lot of people, it's much easier. So, you just have to know where you're at in the cycle and adjust accordingly. And obviously, me and many others are people that have just been doing it. So when you're already kind of prepared, you've been doing it, when that time comes, you can take advantage of it.
Totally. And I've seen this kind of in the marketing space where, a lot of companies are trying to save money and maybe their marketing budget's getting slashed.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of available real estate right now with digital marketing. The people cut their budgets. So, if you're a company that can afford to do it,
Yeah.
you can really take action during this time and take over all that attention that other people are giving up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm, and me personally, I've always been somebody that's been on the last of the bandwagon on whatever technology. I was like the last person to get a cell phone, and then a day later, I was like, oh my gosh, how to live without this, right? And so, here we are now, and I've just been on social media, as a first casually. Then I was like, okay, I, do my professional thing on there, but it wasn't like, hey, let me really ramp this up. And so, I'm doing things now and spending money on things now that I never thought that I would. But it's not like I'm spending more money. I'm actually probably spending less. I probably need to spend more money, actually. But it's just because, well, now I'm not spending money on all that other stuff. I can spend it on stuff that actually matters, right? Where, spending money on gas and this and that, okay, yeah, I can justify it, but I could put something into, some ads or, this or that, or this program, that software, and actually make a difference in my business and move the needle. So, yeah. It's time to go all in, right?
Totally. It's the businesses grow more in a downturn, than when things are great, because there's so much competition during those times. So, it can be looked at as a positive if you take the right
Oh,
actions right now.
I mean, very, very much, very much. And, also, you don't, it's not very linear. If you work a job, you get paid in a linear fashion. You work an hour, they pay you an hour, you get a salary, you get an incremental pay raise. There's nothing wrong with that. But in any business, it tends to be more, the growth curve tends to be more like a hockey stick, where it's like flat, 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 and then it's, spikes. And so I've had times where it's like, every action I took, anything that I did, it just seems like I couldn't get like major growth. I would get like incremental growth, but then there'd be other times where it seemed like I didn't do anything extra, and it just, really made a big difference. And that seems to be where we're at now. And I've just been around just long enough to recognize it, to go, okay, now instead of just enjoying that, right now it's time to, grind like, the bottom's going to fall out tomorrow.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great approach.
Yeah.
This is kind of random. I'm very curious. I've asked this to a couple of previous guests and had some pretty funny stories. What is your worst client experience?
um, I got lots of them. All kinds of stuff, right? I'll tell one, but I mean, I've had times where I'll just kind of do a rapid fire, then I'll tell a story. But back in the day, I remember I showed up to a lady's house, prospect's house, and she had no pants on. That was crazy. Another time, showed up at somebody's house to sell them insurance. This was like really early on, and they had cocaine on the table. They're like shoving it off. I'm like, holy crap. Another time in Michigan, I was working in the B2B space, and going into companies and doing employee benefit enrollments and stuff. And I had this big deal that it was going to be great. I was going to make, 5 figures, maybe multiple 5 figures. And at the last second, some higher up made a decision that affected the whole thing. So I was still going to get it, but it was going to be like a couple $1,000s. And I had to sleep in my car because I had to meet all the employees at like 2:00, between shifts and stuff. So a bunch of crazy stuff like that. But so I actually had, and this is not a client story. This is more of like somebody that worked with this story. And there was it's 2 ladies, like mid 30s. This was a few years back, and maybe 5 years ago. And they started working with us, and I got introduced to them, and I remember talking to them, and they're like, well, I'm doing this because I want to get out of, my night job. Night job. I thought I'm like, I thought she said she worked at like a computer company, worked in an office or something. Like, she's like, I make pretty good money, but I want to get out of that. And I'm like, she makes like, I don't know what she makes. But I'm like, she probably makes $40,000, $50,000 a year. I mean, that's pretty good, but I wouldn't call it like, oh, I make good money. Right. And so she just kept saying things like, oh, I got this night job and I just really want to give it up. And then I'm looking at like the customers she's getting, and they're all married men. Right. And, she would say things like, oh, hey, she would reach out to somebody. Hey, can you call that guy? It's like not a good time for me. I'm like, just kept saying weird things. And then I remember one day we were talking, and she kept talking about her night job. And I was like, what do you do? And she's like, well, you know what I do. I was like, no, I don't know what you do. And I'm totally naive at the point of what's going on. And she's like, well, I'm a prostitute. I was like, oh, okay. Makes sense, right? Not like all the stars aligned, and it's like, okay, married men, got it. Can't call them when their wives are there, got it. Okay. So so that was pretty crazy. And she ended up doing well for a time. I think I don't know,
Doing well.
but I think she was like blackmailing these people, like, hey, if you don't, become our customer, I'm going to tell your wife or something. I don't know what was going on, and
Oh man.
And then like I didn't see her for a while, and then one of her customers called me, and they were like, hey, I need some help with this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, well, hey, how's so and so? And they're like, oh, she's dead. Oh, okay.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
Call me if you need anything.
Hey, I
So
mean,
you meet all types, right?
talk about, like having, kind of two businesses, one helping the other kind of thing. I mean, she had it
Yeah.
going on.
People helping people, right?
Right.
Yeah. I after that, I was like, I don't know how to, it's like, just pretend that conversation didn't happen.
Man. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I was thinking, how's he going to top the cocaine story? And, that one's pretty good.
I got one. I got one for you. I'll tell you off camera. I don't know if I'm ready to tell that one on camera yet.
All right. Yeah.
That's
That'll
a good
work.
one. Yeah.
Another random question. Does anybody tell you you look like Justin Timberlake?
I know I haven't heard that
Really?
one actually. No.
Believe it
Um,
or not, I've gotten that one a lot, but I think you look
I
more
could
like him than I do.
I could see that. I could see that. So there's a guy that I know out in California. He does not look anything like Justin Timberlake, but he's a friend of mine, and he dresses in a very loud manner. Right? He's always wearing like rhinestone jackets with big pocket puffers, and his name is Justin Timbershake.
Whoa.
So I that's his like brand. He's in the real estate business, um and so one time we were at a function and he was there, and this lady, she's kind of, she's a little older. She's not really like tuned into like pop culture and stuff, and she just heard him say his name was Justin Timbershake. So she got her picture taken with him. He looked nothing like Justin Timbershake, by the way, or Timberlake. And so she was showing somebody, I got my picture with Justin Timberlake, and they're like, no, it's not. Like, yes, it is. That's what he said. And she was like almost getting mad about it. And like, she called me. She's like, isn't that guy Justin Timberlake? I was like, no, it's Timbershake. So no, that's a first though. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Justin Timbershake, and he's in real estate. That's not a stage name.
I he told me the story once upon a time. Right. He told me the story once upon a time. I don't remember where it came from, but it was like probably one of those things. Somebody said something, it stuck. He used it as like his brand, and very interesting guy. He's got a couple different things he's got going on. He's in the real estate business, yeah. I mean, with a name
That's
like that, you
hilarious.
have to be interesting.
Hey, yeah, it stands out. I mean,
Yeah,
set yourself apart a little bit.
for
How'd
sure.
you get the nickname or brand Jack Lockhart on the move? Where'd that come
Josh
from?
Lockhart on the move. Yeah.
Or sorry, Josh Lockhart on the move.
Hey, it's all right. My people mess up my name very often. In fact, my mom for 18 years would mistakenly call me John, and I have no
What?
brothers. I have no brothers. I had three sisters. She would mistakenly call me John, and then when I was 18, she had a boy and named him John. So
Wow.
if
Did
my
that
own
solve it?
mom messed it up, I can't expect anybody else to.
I know
But
your name's Josh. That was a
yeah.
a
Josh
typo through
John.
my mouth.
So, like I guess like everything else, it was just something I didn't plan on. So, I had a Facebook account, and how I started kind of going down the social media path is I would get customers. I mean, social media, Facebook, Instagram, you can use it in a lot of ways that, we always hear about like, oh, you got to get a following and this and that. And of course you want to do that. But I find it's a better follow-up method in many ways than, a CRM tool, for example, or a calendar. Oh, I gotta follow up with so-and-so. Yes, you want to do those things, but if they're in your network and you're active, they're always seeing you what's going on, and they're remembering you, they're thinking about you. 20 years ago, it was called top of mind marketing. You go bring by cookies or something like that. But so anyway, I would start, talking to customers and prospects and people I was meeting, and I would, hey, what's your favorite social media platform? And longest time is I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Then it was, I'm on LinkedIn because I'm a professional. Okay. And I kept hearing that more. I was like, okay, let me make a LinkedIn page. And then, talking to younger generations over the last couple of years, like, oh, yeah, I'm not on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. It's like, okay, I guess I gotta get on Instagram. And that just kept happening. So I think the only thing I'm not on is TikTok. So So anyway, so I started doing the Facebook thing and then Instagram, and I was like, okay, when I started my Instagram, I was like, well, I need to come up with something where I can just say, go, look me up here. And people are like, oh, how would I find? You ever try to add somebody on Facebook? And it's like, oh, I can't. Brady Hester, there's like 7
Oh,
of
it's
them.
terrible.
Are you the one holding up the red umbrella? Are you? No, I can't find you. And so I just said, okay, well, what can I come up with? Josh Lockhart was taken. Joshua Lockhart was taken. And I was feeling pretty motivated that day. And I was like, Josh Lockhart on the move, and synced them both up. So no matter what platform you're on, you can find me.
So were you always busy before the nickname, or did you kind of take on that mantra and just roll with it?
No. So I mean, no. One of the things I've done well. Many I haven't. One thing I've done well is just always work really hard. I enjoy working hard. Workaholic for sure. I like it that way. I think one of the main reasons we're put here is to do work of some sort and do it well. So anything that I've ever done, whether it was, college sports, wrestling college, or music, play several instruments, business, I just always felt, and maybe it was something I felt like I had to make up for because I wasn't more talented than other people in my head, at least. I just figured I had to work twice as hard as everybody else. So in my career, I probably made 100,000 cold calls,
Dang.
And so I've always just kind of been that, like, hey, I'm just going to work twice as hard. I'm going to make twice as many calls. I'm going to go on twice as many appointments. I'm going to go, whatever I'm going to do, I'm just going to do it more. And, there's plenty of people that are more talented, that make more money, that do everything more than me. But there's very few people that can work as hard as I can for as long as I can. So I don't know. It just seemed to fit.
Awesome. I like it.
And I'll tell you what, though. It's been, especially Instagram. When I was in North Carolina, we went to a church about 5,000 people, So just, being active and doing the deal. I remember one of the first times we went there, 2 people in the same day came up to me in a building of 5,000 people. And they're like, hey, aren't you that Josh on the Move guy? I was like, oh man, this social media stuff is like the real deal. And then when we moved here, we went to a church, 5,000 people. The week we go there, I walk by this guy and he's like, hey, on the Move. My wife's like, do you know that guy? I was like, yeah, that's Kyle from Instagram. So, I suppose it's catchy.
Hey, it's working.
Yeah. I'll take it.
Awesome, man. You want to let the people know what you're up to these days, or where they can follow you at? I mean, obviously Instagram.
Yep, Facebook, Instagram, at Josh Lockhart on the Move. And we're getting ready to launch a YouTube channel. Initially, it's going to be all about sales training, cold calling, things like that. And it'll morph into other stuff, maybe a vlog and different things. But a couple different training platforms. So anybody that's a salesperson, maybe you're a broker of some sort trying to build a sales team. That's what I do. That's what I'm about. And we do a bunch of training stuff outside of my core business. And the thing is, right, find something that you're good at, you don't mind doing, help a bunch of people and make a bunch of money. And if you can do all that simultaneously, and you have the family and all the other parts of life, that's a rich life. So that's what we're trying to make happen.
Totally. Will the YouTube be affiliated with
It'll just be Josh
Pro
Lockhart.
Showcase? Oh, okay.
No, it'll just be Josh Lockhart. That's where I'm at, I don't know. It might be it might be a version of that. I'm not sure exactly how I want to integrate that quite yet. So that's a sticky part. So I don't know if it'll be the Young Pro Showcase. It might be something slightly different, but we got some folks lined up for it. So I don't know. We're just taking it one step at a time and just seeing, where it's going to go. Because I didn't have a master plan, right? It's like the more you do, the more you can do. So you get to the end of a road and you go, I think I can go. I think I can run another mile. You run another mile and you're like, I can keep going. It's like Forrest Gump, right? Next thing you know, you run around the world. Yep. So we're just going to keep running, man.
Cool. I mean, you have so much content out there right now. You could always repurpose that, put in little helpful clips through YouTube. So
yeah, for sure.
Cool.
For sure. I need to come back with Braddog and get some tips and direction. We'll make something happen.
Hey, let's do it.
Yeah,
Sounds good to
man.
me.
Appreciate you having me on. Really, really do. It's been a lot of fun.
Hey, it's been a great show. I'm glad you came on. Thanks for taking
Absolutely.
the time.
Yes, sir.
One
Yes, sir.
one last question. Do you play that guitar in the background?
So, this is a green screen. This is a green screen.
Come on, you're supposed to go along with it.
Oh, I was? Okay. Yeah. No, so I played the drums. I played the trumpet for 7 years. I picked up the guitar just enough. So if I had to fill in a band and just keep rhythm, I could. So if it was real, I could.
And it's already evening there. That's pretty amazing. So it's still bright where I'm at. So it's crazy in Georgia. It's already dark.
Dude, it stays like this. It stays like this. You know, you can work 24 hours a day around the clock.
Man, that's perfect.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me, and we'll stay in touch.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.